right. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're excited to have you here, and we've got some great content lined up that we think you'll find really valuable. Just a quick housekeeping note, if you have any questions during the presentation, you can go ahead and put them in the Q&A chat below, I believe at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll leave some time at the end to go through and answer as many as we can. So with that, I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. Mike, if you want to share it.
Sorry about that. One second.
No worries.
It was auto advancing, so I'm gonna have to deal with that. Like,
All right. So, Mike Grigsby, our Smart Cities consultant, is a new addition to the TerraGo team, and we're very excited to have him here. I'm sure you can see why. He is a seasoned technology leader known for his work in smart cities and digital transformation. He served as a CIO in both the public and private sectors and now helps public agencies improve infrastructure, safety, transportation, and citizen engagement. As a proud military and law enforcement veteran, Mike is passionate about keeping people at the center of every tech expert. Joining him is our VP of Marketing, Mike Gunling. Mike is an experienced technology and product leader with a strong track record of helping B2B tech companies grow quickly through smart strategy and innovation. He's known for his strengths in marketing, product management, and guiding organizations through digital transformation. And now I will go ahead and hand things off to Mike.
Yeah. Mike, I think we're going to have to start calling this the Mike and Mike show. I know that's been branded already, but I think we're going to have to start going with that. So it's
I,
fantastic.
I think that trademark's coming back open now. So, so
I love it. I love it. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am excited to dive into this. It's interesting. We'll talk a little bit about Mike's observations and experiences from the most recent Smart City Expo and World Congress that was held last month in Barcelona, Spain. That has been I guess, almost a mecca of sorts for anyone in the smart city, certainly technology spaces that are looking at that. We see a lot of things that are coming out of that. We learn about new and emerging technologies. We hear about solutions, and one of the things we're going to really hear about from Mike today is some observations, not just from Barcelona, but what TerraGo has been looking at over the last several months, several years from trends and some big challenges that we're going to have to overcome. I Like, not everybody in the audience was able to make the trip to Spain. So do us a favor and paint a little picture, if you will, from your observations, insights that you found, and kind of what the energy was like this year on the floor. I know myself, it's been a few years since I've been back in Barcelona, but give us an idea of what the energy was like on the floor this year.
um, thanks, Mike. Honestly, it was a great conference. It always is. And the energy was great. And I think there's a lot of I think there's a maturing that's coming in the industry because there's been a tremendous amount of innovation. But a lot of folks are now taking that step of getting from pilots to programs, to getting from proof of concept to operations. And of course, there's no shortage of technology talk there. So when you're there at Smart City Expo World Congress, it comes down to talking about technology, talking about the planet, the people and communities, and every smart city is different. And of course, there was a heavy dose of AI this year. And there was one great presentation that was the speakers on the presentation were from the CIO for Denver, Miguel Sangalong from the LA Bureau of Lighting. They were talking about AI and how you use AI to reimagine infrastructure to better serve communities, right? And so every community is different. That type of presentation happened in our booth over and over again. So you can see a little picture of our booth there, but we had conversations in front of our Australia beer, and serving coffee in the morning, of course. But those same conversations were happening there, and then talking about our software. And again, a heavy dose of partnerships as well, because we don't do everything, right? But a lot of our great partners were there, from Itron and FlashNet and Trade Air and other smart sensor and smart lighting companies and things like that, and consultants. So again, great energy and a lot of great conversations. And that's where this all starts. And I know, Mike, that's a big belief of yours is it's not about technology, right? It's about fusing technology with people to make something happen. So it was very exciting. It was a great show.
Yeah, you're right. I look at technology as a tool, right? And technology is to smart cities what hammers is to houses, right? We don't get so hung up in the types of hammers that we use to build a house. We focus on the type of house that we're going to build. And it's the same thing with the technology for smart cities, right? It's not about the tech itself, tech in and of its, for its own end sake, but it's what we're trying to accomplish for the operation of cities. We'll talk more about that. And then also, what is the experience like for the residents? So many times we've talked in the past, and we've been so driven by this effective, efficient, economical mantra that we forget there's a really important fourth E to that mixture that is experience. We have to create great experiences for the people on the receiving end of all the technology that we're doing, whether they're practitioners doing this or whether they're on the receiving end as a resident end user. We've got to create and craft those really good experiences. That's something that TerraGo has been doing for a very, very long time. 20 years in the industry. We can even say that was back before smart cities was commonplace and kind of cool, right? TerraGo has been doing this for a really long time, delivering really, really great experiences. Give us a quick overview. Not everybody in the audience knows who TerraGo is. I know certainly the topic probably attracted a lot of people, but for those that don't know who TerraGo is, Mike, give us an introduction to TerraGo, not just the company, excuse me, not just the platform, but the company itself too.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I won't spend too long here, right? But we are a pure software company, and that helps understand where we come from in our perspective. So R&D and our investment, we're really all about software. We've been around for 20 years. We invented some geospatial technology, and we have customers all around the world. But for the last well, it's certainly over 10 years. We've really been focused on the cities and utilities market. And then we started with Toronto, Canada area, and then we moved to Chicago. Then we got into utilities. There's a common problem, a common challenge for cities and utilities, and it helps us have a focus for our solution and our software because our software, even for us, it's about people too, right? We have subject matter experts. We hire subject matter experts from cities and utilities, and then we've built a platform that's a no-code platform. So what we don't do is come in and tell Chicago or Philadelphia or any of our customers, this is the way it works. This is the way our software works. They tell us how they want to operate, and we make our software adapt to the way they want to operate. And that's really the strategy of our platform, and it's customer focused so that we can give the best solution you can for customization by configuration. So I won't talk too much about that, but that is the theme that makes us really customer focused. So our customers, we are 100% customer referenceable. Any customer we have, we would encourage anybody talking to us, go talk to that customer, ask them how the program's going, how the software is working, what we do for them. We embed as part of the team. We embed to help deliver the solutions and the outcomes that matter to customers. And clearly, those are different by city, right? So I'd like to show this slide as an example of a city operations platform because what we start with our customers about is they've got challenges and we think we have a solution, but at the end we're trying to get outcomes. We're trying to get from where they are today to where they want to be in the future. And we're going to talk about a lot of those challenges, and those challenges don't come from us or marketing or trying to be coming up with a better sales pitch. These are the challenges that our customers have faced and the solutions that we've experienced by working with them, by being focused on getting to these types of outcomes. And so what we do believe TerraGo plays an important role as, and again, we're not the only one, right? We need partners. We need our smart city lighting partners. We need sensors. We need the utilities. We work with and shake hands with all the back office platforms that are there already. We know we need to update the GIS system and asset management. So that software foundation for us is important because what it helps a city do, it solves a lot of these challenges to help them get from point A to point B and where they're going in the future in sort of a future-proof way. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But a lot of cities start with smart streetlights or intelligent traffic signals. They start with public safety programs, maybe with cameras and things like that. But at the end of the day, these are all very heterogeneous environments. But there is a common thread to all of this. It is about infrastructure and it is about
Mhm.
operations and maintaining that infrastructure. So, what we've tried to do is play that role where we can integrate with devices, integrate with systems, and customize a platform based on a city's unique challenges and their unique goals for their outcomes. So, having said that, I hope that's a good introduction to what
Yeah.
TerraGo is and is not. We don't make hardware. We are a software company, and we are focused on getting in the room with our customers and helping them deliver the outcomes they care about.
Like I think one of the key things, as you said just a minute ago, is that a lot of the customers start with smart lighting. I know I've been asked this question several times myself. Why smart lighting? Why is that a key starting point? One of the things that is essential about this, and we're going to talk about this here with some of the challenges you've already identified. But one of the interesting aspects around smart lighting is that it's an existing piece of infrastructure, right? People have already, cities have already oriented themselves around this. They already understand budget. They already have infrastructure. They already have physical assets out there. They're moving to smart control nodes and things along those lines. But the other part is citizens have also oriented themselves around that asset. They know what a street light is. They understand what it does. They understand the benefits. There's a common tone and common theme around it. And it's probably one of the most prolific pieces of asset distribution that a city has, right? When you think about hundreds or thousands of tens of thousands of streetlights deployed across any city fabric, that's a fantastic starting point, one, for operational guidance and operational intelligence. But two, it also really helps, and it's a great starting point for recouping operational and maintenance costs that may not otherwise have been either had visibility into or understood kind of what those opportunities are. We won't dive into that, but I know you made that point around smart lighting. And I think it's also essential to say that TerraGo is not just a smart lighting company. That happens to be one aspect that TerraGo has some deep expertise in. But when we start thinking about grid maintenance, or we start thinking about IoT, or we start thinking about even non quote unquote smart assets, TerraGo does a fantastic job on that. I could go off on days on that talking about where the need is, but let's talk about these big challenges. You and I had a conversation here recently, and I love that you've been able to encapsulate this. These aren't the only seven challenges, but these are definitely the seven big challenges that municipalities and utilities are dealing with. Um, Let's talk about this. Let's unpack each one of these. We're not going to do a deep exegesis on each one of them, but let's do an overview because I think it's important for people to understand, one, what the nature of the challenge is, and two, let's show some examples of what TerraGo has currently been doing and what other things are happening in the industry. Let's jump off right with the kind of the big elephant in the room: legacy infrastructure. I know in my own background as a chief information officer, this is one of the things I had to deal with on a regular basis. My legacy systems were not able to kind of match the pace of demand that was out there, nor were we able to adopt all of the emerging technologies that were showing up there. Talk about how TerraGo is helping municipalities and even utilities. How is TerraGo able to help with this notion of legacy infrastructure? And maybe we can even put in a kind of a sidekick point of this called technical debt.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm going to jump right in and talk about a customer and talk about like a real life situation, right? So, as a way to talk about this now, so Baltimore Gas and Electric had over 300,000 streetlights. When we first started meeting with them and working with them before they had deployed our software, right? The gentleman that's in the picture there is Eric Barger, by the way, who now works for us, right? He liked the software so much, he enjoyed the process. I mean, he's one of our directors of services, right? So it's just an important element that we bring that like subject matter human expertise because like Mike knows and Mike has made a career about too, it's not just about technology, it is about people. But when Baltimore Gas and Electric was looking at deploying over 300,000 smart lighting controls from our partner at Itron, they had fundamental problems getting from the legacy of where they were with photocells and the infrastructure they had and being able to efficiently deploy and create a streetlight operations platform that they could extend to other domains and assets as well. But just starting there, more than half of their data about their polls contain inaccurate or missing data. So when we talk about it like it's data, because when you talk about technology, it feels like you're talking about technology. But the problem is you're rolling the wrong truck to the wrong place with the wrong parts. You're incredibly inefficient. You're overbilling some customer, you're underbilling another customer. You have a tremendous amount of loss in revenue, efficiency, and even your carbon footprint because you don't have that data. And that's probably one of the most fundamental things that's important about TerraGo is what we are trying to do is start at the edge of where infrastructure is and give the ground truth from the crews, from the people that are out there, the ability to live with and update that asset data. And we start with the legacy data. We're talking about the poles, the locations, where they are. Poles were missing. BG&E wanted to do an audit, right? So an old-fashioned way to do an audit would be, hey, let's go out and hire a company, spend a couple $1 million, audit all the lights in the city. Now our GIS data is good. We all feel good. We pat ourselves on the back. But the minute that survey person walks away, takes a picture of the pole and the pole tag, and they walk away, something happens. That data starts to go bad. So all of this data going bad is a cycle that has to be broken. So what we did with BG&E, and we've done a lot of other places, is break that cycle.
Mhm.
Give to the people that are managing the infrastructure an application they can use to do their job better. It's got to be tied to what they're doing to be able to update that data as well. It does help when you add sensors to it, but it doesn't do everything when you add a light control to a pole. You have to do more than that. You have to give them the tools to be able to update the data, but also update their asset management system, their GIS system, their billing system. So all of that integration comes together to break that cycle of getting from legacy infrastructure and a place of data quality that doesn't really support the most efficient operations to getting to a new place, right? So Baltimore Gas and they took the entire life cycle of a lighting asset from the minute they place an order and they have inventory and the crews are out there. When the crews go out now, they're using the TerraGo application and again with the power of smart lighting, you can do things like I know this is a power issue. I'm not going to send a street lighting crew to replace a fixture when I've got a power issue. I'm going to send a cable crew to fix a power issue. So as you add that intelligence,
Yeah. Yeah.
your operations becomes even better, right? But you have to add that intelligence, and that intelligence is a fabric that covers both your legacy infrastructure, your new smart lights that are cool, and beyond the smart light control that sits on the top of the light and tells you things. All of that infrastructure that ties it together. And then, of course, the work management that goes into it. Because if the crews don't use it, they don't update it, then we are still living in the pain of the past, where we have legacy data and we have poor data quality, and we're losing touch with the ground truth of our infrastructure. So it was a seminal
Yeah.
moment for BG&E to be able to make that leapfrog to digital transformation using the TerraGo platform, and also help them get to a place where they have smart lighting which also helps, and we can leverage that to improve operations even further.
You know, if I understand correctly, and we don't have time to unpack all of this, if I understand correctly, you are also not only, I mean, BG&E is a great example, but you're also able to help customers not have to kind of get paralyzed around this rip and replace everything to start taking advantage of new things, right? The layer that kind of the operational intelligence platform that TerraGo offers allows people to kind of start where they are. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, we have customers that are still deploying, photo cells. They're still deploying fixtures that don't have smart controls. Maybe they have a plan to do it. We have customers that don't have any smart controls, right? So we really are talking about let's go to the customer facing challenge. And the customers, they don't get to start with a clean slate, right? So they have to work with both, and they have to have a bridge from where they are today to where they are in the future. And all these challenges are important to them.
Yeah, no, that's great. You used the word several times. You talked about data, right? Um, we got to talk about the data and data in silos. Data in silos. Municipalities, I know firsthand, and certainly utilities and other entities, other agencies, they already have gobs of data. They have, HR data, or they have operations data, or they have finance data, or they have, all these other specific systems in what we would consider silos, right? Um, I like using the idea because we've heard this term of data silos, right? the idea is not to break down individual silos, right? If you had a silo of corn on your farm, a silo of beans on your corn, and a silo of something else, and you broke down those silos, you would just have a mess. The idea is to extract the most meaningful components and elements out of that data. How is TerraGo helping to extract meaningful, cogent pieces, elements of data from these silos, Mike?
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's a great example of Chicago. And again, I'll just try to tell the interesting part of the story is really when you look at it from their perspective. So Chicago was investing in smart lights, and but the way it was working at Chicago when we first started working with Chicago and our partners from Ameresco and Itron were there because remember, TerraGo, we don't do anything in a silo, right? We are customer focused and we're customer focused alongside our partners, shoulder to shoulder. But when we got there, they were deploying smart lights, but the way Chicago was working was somebody would call in and say, my street light is out. They would enter that into salesforce.com. Well, you're getting digital, so that sounds good, right? Then they would print out the paper ticket from salesforce.com and they'd go place it on a table. The table was organized in a large room based on the map grid of Chicago and contractors. Then they would stack those pieces of paper and they literally had a rock they would place on the stack of work orders. And the contractors would come in every morning and get their stack of work orders from underneath their rock. Then they would go drive out. They would look at them. Where's this? Where's that? They drive to it and they'd go, well, there's 5 streetlights near this address. I don't know which one it is. So they'd write something indecipherable down on a piece of paper. It'd come back in the office. Somebody would update a status. And meanwhile, nothing was achieved. We rolled a truck. We didn't solve a problem. We don't know what the problem is. The customer doesn't know. They're in the dark. Okay, so make a leap forward, right? So the leap forward is we integrated with Salesforce.com. We integrated with the Itron smart lighting system. We integrated with the billing system with ComEd. So we were able to break down these data silos that were there. The one of the other data silos. So that was kind of like the 311 customer data to the work management kind of silo. Those things were not connected. We connected those. Then we connected billing. So ComEd's out there. I'm sorry, Chicago's out there converting lights. They need to be getting rebates and credits from ComEd to save about $10 million a year is what they'd end up saving at the end of this project. Well, they weren't getting credit for months. So we started to automatically update when they did the transition and they put the smart lighting control and the LED on the light. We updated the billing system with ComEd in real time. In real time. That ended up saving them. The city told us we saved them the
Yeah,
equivalent of a year. We saved them over $10 million. That was a pretty expensive data silo, right? We delivered $10 million in additional savings beyond what they would have without TerraGo by breaking down that data silo because they weren't getting credit in a timely fashion for their conversion to LED smart streetlights and their rebates from ComEd, and they weren't getting the rollout done in the time that they had planned. So all in all, they said, thank you, Terga. That was worth $10 million just in breaking down that billing data silo. So that's a great, powerful example of the efficiency on the kind of like the Salesforce side and the actual, raw cost of bad data and data silos on the billing side.
Listen, I think we're going to have an extra series on this because I keep coming up with more and more ideas that we just don't have the time to unpack. But you're talking about connecting different systems, right? We already, just the topic, this particular challenge is called silos, right? It just indicates that there are multiple different systems in there. We're I think it's important, and I'll just give an overview of it that. You're not connecting the systems, quote unquote, commingling data between them. What TerraGo is able to do is really extract, like I said, extract those most cogent elements out of there and provide intelligence or provide those insights. Again, we can't go off in and unpack all of that as much as I would like to, but maybe we'll have to come up with another series, Mike.
Yeah.
Uh, but to that point, right? Connecting systems. I think the inherent term of that is going to be interoperability, right? If you have two systems that need to either relate to, connect, or grab intelligence from, you're going to have interoperability. And it seems like every new piece of technology has its own either proprietary language or some proprietary sense of organizing that data, that information that it's there. It has its own control system, or what we'll call a central management system, a CMS. Every one of those has that CMS layer in there. And that CMS is very, very important. It's essential to the operation within each one of those verticals. But there's a necessity to share that information, share those insights across. Talk about interoperability and how you're helping organizations out there in this agnostic layer, being able to grab insights from multiple different, disparate systems that are needing to talk and communicate with each other.
Yeah, that's a great setup there, Mike, as we're unpacking this. I'm going to talk a little bit about Duke Energy. I use Charlotte as a location spotlight and example here. But when we talk about interoperability, it's important to understand there are several things at play. And by the way, we love our CMS partners, our control partners that are out there, and we are for the benefit of our customers at the charter of our customers, not because TerraGo decided a strategy in a vacuum. We are agnostic to what our customers choose, right? So that means we support all the different vendors, right? So here with Duke Energy, what was important for them was they decided that they wanted to have three, and I'm sure maybe they'll have more in the future, different vendors for their very massive, the world's largest smart lighting network solution, and it was spanning a few different vendors, and from in this case it was Verizon, Ubiquia, and FlashNet. But what we're able to do with interoperability is do things that the industry talks about in a lot of ways, and it's an important area to understand the difference between there are data standards. There's a way that allows us to speak a common language, and these are very important. Things like talk. So when you start talking about standards, it does help things interoperate. But when you need interoperability for operations, you can't live on a standard. There weren't a lot of million light integrated examples across five different vendors. In fact, there were none. Prior to our involvement in some of these projects, we're able to integrate from an operational point of view all these different vendors so that the field crews, they don't use a CMS tool to install or to maintain or get a work order or roll a truck or do things. The CMS and the controls are very valuable, and we're really about leveraging and amplifying that value. So we don't mean to diminish it at all. But when you sit on the customer's perspective of it and actually go to the field crew doesn't care what they're installing. They're being told what to install. Here it is. I want to go do
Sure.
my job. I want to do it quickly. I want to do it right. I want to get it done right the first time. So our application allows them to go out and install a control from Ubiquia or FlashNet or Verizon. And based on the differences, and they're always subtle and unique and sometimes profound differences between the technologies and how they work, they have the same experience. I roll my truck. I'm at the right place. I'm scanning. I'm putting it in. I've captured all the warranty information. I'm ensuring that it's working before I leave the place because everybody knows there are problems. In the real world, there are problems. Sometimes drivers fail. Sometimes communications doesn't happen. Sometimes a node doesn't commission. These things happen. So dealing with that in a cross-vendor interoperable way for Duke Energy means they can have a single pane of glass. And so that's important to them, not because they need something that's better than the CMS from the three different vendors. They need something completely different. They need something that's going to help their crews and their operations team deploy 2.5 million streetlights. And again, along the way, managing the whole lighting infrastructure. Duke Energy doesn't manage a lighting control. They manage everything underneath it. They manage the fixture, they manage the pole, they manage the power, they manage the base, they manage different types of lights. They're managing decoratives, they're managing highway lights, cobra heads, all these different things, right? So it's not a control centric view of operations. It's an operations view of operation that means
Yeah.
you need
Yeah.
interoperability at the software layer. And that software layer is more than interoperability across vendors, which I did talk mostly about, but it's also across all of their systems. Guess what? These guys don't lack software. They've got tons of software. They've got enterprise asset management. They've got work order. They've got GIS. They've got billing. You have to tie them all together. So interoperability isn't just about connecting hardware vendors or CMS systems. That's an important part, and that's included in our platform. But we also have 100 different commercial connectors to all these other different platforms, right? Because the idea is if you take an operations view of things, you stop taking the data silo or vendor specific or hardware specific view of it. So crews can get the job done regardless of what infrastructure they're dealing with, right? So that's really the power of interoperability.
As you're talking about this, the old story, right, is there's several blind men trying to describe an elephant. One says that is the side he's feeling the side and it feels like a wall. One feels the leg and it feels like a trunk, and one feels the tail and says it's a snake. What I heard someone say one time is that only the narrator of that story can see all the blind men and the elephant and give a holistic picture of what's actually happening. And I think that notion of interoperability layer is I think that's kind of the role that TerraGo plays, is that it's agnostic enough to step far enough back, but give a real picture of what's happening across all these different systems. And that is so essential for not only the operational visibility, but the operational intelligence that's happening across multiple systems. Mike, you can tell I'm excited. I want to dive in more on this, but
Yeah.
I do want to keep going because you mentioned vendors several different times, and we're talking about interoperability. So every one of those is going to have different vendors. I know from my own experience, again, having been a chief information officer at a municipal level, uh, getting locked into one vendor for delivery of a particular solution, only to learn later on, not that long after we came to an agreement, that company disbanded, right? That company went away. The usable life cycle of the equipment was still there, but we didn't have the operating system. That CMS was gone. We didn't have other components to it, and we didn't have the dollars to go rip and replace everything. Talk about how TerraGo can help organizations, especially, and I mentioned this earlier, right? First, you're going to help them start where they are, but how do you help them kind of insulate against that vendor lock-in, which is such a critical point?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And this one, of course, is a reasonable segue from the last subject about interoperability, but it's so important from the customer's perspective, like you say. And so, if we're having a genuine conversation, I hope we'll have some good questions from the crowd and the attendees afterwards. There are folks that pull away from a market, right? And this has happened to folks with smart lighting, right? So there are customers today who are looking for how do I rip and replace my SimCon nodes or these other nodes that I invested in that I can no longer have support? Things get deprecated, and so and again, there's a balance here for how do you do this? So we look at Georgia Power and our friend Scotty Burks here in the picture. He really led a transformational project at Georgia Power, and we started by talking to him and listening about what were the pain points they had, right? And they had already invested in smart lighting, and they were a pioneer in smart lighting, and they were like a real the use case for not vendor lock-in from the draconian story of somebody's going away, but the ability to be abstract at a layer to be able to manage this infrastructure in one system. So one system, and when Scotty talked about one system, he meant one system for his operations to manage all their outdoor lighting operations and smart lighting and it's become the standard across Southern Company now for Alabama Power and Mississippi Power as well. But the idea that you have one system extends down to your operations. It also extends out to the public. So if you go to the Georgia Power website and you say, "Hey, I want to report a street light out," right? Well, you can report a street light out, and they came up with what do we want to know from them when they report a street light out? How do we get information now that they're talking to us? How do we get accurate location information on the map? How do we show them, oh, we already detected there's a light out. TerraGo already flagged an outage, an alert that may have come from, one of their three different smart lighting control vendors they have at Georgia Power. So that the customer can come and say, "Oh, they already know there's a light out," or I'm reporting a street light out, and I want an update. Let me give you my phone number or my email, and you let me know. So they also created a single pane of glass for the customers of Georgia Power in Atlanta and around the entire state to say, we're going to let you know what's going on with our lighting infrastructure. And Scotty talked about a personal story about his daughter going to a concert there, Taylor Swift concert, and safety is important. Lighting is vital, right? And it's important to him. So he took a very personal approach to saying, I do want to connect with the community and make sure that these lights around the Mercedes-Benz area are operational, and let's get to a single pane of glass for operations and for the communities that we serve. So again, it's a work in progress, but it's a really one of a great example of a transformational project and a presentation they've given at some lighting conferences and things like that. And it's over 1 million streetlights, right? So or it's around 1 million streetlights. It's a massive network. It's multi-vendor, and now it's not vendor lock-in like they're worried about, this particular vendor going away, but they are abstracted from that. Now they can choose the right solution for this area or
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
area. They can use to leverage that technology and use it for what it's good. And their operations are immune from vendor lock-in. They don't have a disruption to the service they provide their communities based on adding a fourth or a fifth or a sixth control vendor or doing something with smart grid sensors in an adjacent group and using the same platform, right? So that's the power of vendor lock-in, right? Is that your operations continues to move forward without being dependent upon a provider that could impact your operations in a negative way.
Well, I think that's important too, right? Because you said, the one use case is a vendor goes away, and now you're left with something that you can't either operate, or you have to force an end of life. I think the other part is that you just said is even more important, right? If you need a quote unquote mixed fleet of devices, whether it's smart lighting, whether it's traffic management systems, whether it's other IoT or other assets, if you need that mixed fleet, the layer that TerraGo offers allows the customer to normalize that mixed environment and overlay unified policy or unified governance across that mixed fleet. And I think that's essential so that you're not having to log into every individual system that you have out there. I think that's crucial. One, it's a time saving standpoint, and it's actually a great segue into what we're going to talk about next is this information overload, right? The idea that cities, I've already talked about this, well, cities and organizations already have gobs of data. Alerts and alarms are critical. They're essential, but they're not enough. We don't need to just know, right? We've talked about this forever, the single pane of glass. I think so many people are working towards that single pane of glass, which is, again, it's essential, but it's not enough. How do you take and extract the most important pieces of information between systems so that you have operational intelligence, not just an alert or an alarm? And I think, one of the simple examples that I give is if you have, a CMS that's managing your lighting system, it can tell you everything about a particular node or fixture or pole or whatever the case is, but that doesn't tell police that that light was on during an accident. How do you share that kind of information, and how do you how is TerraGo helping extract those most cogent pieces of information out of systems?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. It's a great example, and we'll dive in here with an example. With Jamaica Public Service at Kingston, it's a fundamental truth that cities and utilities they don't lack data. We're managing over 10 million streetlights on our software platform. We're talking about hundreds of millions of messages. And what you have to do with information overload is first you have to do what we're talking about. You have to connect your operations with the data that's important to let them do their job. You also have to make that seamless and two-way. So we've got to like when somebody's out there and they're performing a maintenance function, we want to make sure we're capturing the light they're taking away. Is it under warranty? The light they're putting on and get that information. We want to get the lighting control. We want to have, the NIC code. We want to make sure it's communicating on the network. We want to make sure the pole tag information is right. It's tagged correctly to the infrastructure. The location is right. But then all that information has got to go out. So the information overload's got to go back to the GIS system, the billing system, the asset management, the work order, all those different systems. It's not like we're bringing in, and there's a lot of data, right, that comes from a smart lighting system as an example, and all those alerts, but it's not all actionable. So information
Right.
overload is the noise to signal problem. And so what TerraGo does with that is we create a fabric based on your business rules. your business rules, not TerraGo's. We do bring some best practices because we hire experts in the industry and they have some things to show you and they like to consult with you. But at the end of the day, it's your business rules to decide what is my actionable information. So getting from the noise to the signal, getting from the signal to the action is really what we're about. And we don't do that in a
I like it.
vacuum. We do that with our customers.
Yeah. And again, it kind of leads us right into the next topic, which is real-time visibility, right? Being able to kind of navigate that noise to signal ratio and extract those most cogent pieces really does affect the real-time visibility. And real time is kind of a relative term, right? We're trying to reduce the latency as much as possible, and cities need that for that true operational intelligence, right? It's one thing to have something go down or a work order created that the response time is not critical. But when we start talking about like intelligent transportation systems, ITS, and managing traffic signals, like those failures, if we don't have the response time and the uptime that goes along with it, it's crucial, right? Talk about this notion of real time visibility and some of the outcomes that you've helped the customers with.
Yeah. Um, this is an example that I think is an interesting story, and it's really from a command center kind of perspective. My software career, I spent a lot of time in aviation, right? And with the FAA Command Center, which is an amazing facility where you can see all the aviation traffic, all the air traffic in the United States and in global airspace areas around us and all those things. And the data of itself and the visibility there is very impactful, right? You know exactly what that means when you're looking at real-time flights and things like that. But now we talk about the fabric of a city. And in this case, San Antonio, the public utility CPS Energy, that's part of the city, they actually said we want to take a strategic approach to how we're managing lighting infrastructure. And they worked with Dalkey Energy Solutions to do that. And they created two things. They created one, an innovation lab where they could test bringing new technologies in, right? And that's important. They did smart crosswalks, they did solar lights, and then the solar lights they were able to go out and put them in their operations platform. But that single pane of glass for them was everything because for them it could help them see the past. They don't have smart lighting controls on over 100,000 lights. They're managing lighting infrastructure. It helps them see what the community sees. It helps them see what they're trying to test in the innovation lab and what it would mean when they put it out into their infrastructure. And then the command center gives them the ability to provide comprehensive support for all their operations and services. New construction, the city's growing. They did a study. There were gaps in lighting that were safety issues for the city of San Antonio. So they brought out solar lights and we integrated those into the platform. They maintain that visibility though. That command center is super cool. It's great because they can see everything that's going on, but it's more than the real-time visibility too, because they can see their legacy lights, they can see the technology they're introducing through the innovation lab, so they can see the future. They can see how they're going to bring it into the operational fabric of how they're going to maintain it. The last thing they want to do is say, this is really cool technology. Let me go deploy it as a solo with a silo and its own system and its own platform. And now it's out there and it's on an island. They don't do that. They bring it through the innovation lab into the command center fabric. And that's how they keep real-time visibility into their lighting infrastructure, even without smart lighting controls. It's really about real-time visibility and connecting with their customers on what's out there and what their field crews are doing and their priorities. So you can have real-time visibility that helps you see the future and also connects your legacy infrastructure and your smart city infrastructure that you're bringing in.
This dovetails into a topic that we don't have on our list today, but it really goes into kind of institutional knowledge, right? Unlocking institutional knowledge from your subject matter experts is one of the biggest challenges that organizations are facing today. And what it does is allows them to get that. My father was an air traffic controller, so I remember going in and getting to see that scope and thinking, how in the world are you managing all of
Yeah.
this, right? the ability to be able to go in and unlock some of that institutional knowledge to reallocate your team's expertise into new or emerging areas, that's huge. It's ability. Not only is it on the real-time visibility side, but now you're able to extend the life of your subject matter experts and help them deliver even more intelligence back to the organization. Again, not a topic we have on our list, but certainly one we probably need to dive into a little bit more. But we're going to end by talking about community engagement, and I think it's important. I have said this for as long as I've been in technology, right? That we need to, as practitioners, we need to remember that on the receiving end of every piece of technology we come up with is a real live breathing human being. And if we can't make it important, if we can't increase the value or state the value high enough, and we can't create a high experience with benefits. Why are we doing this, right? And at the end of the day, this notion of community engagement is really, really critical, especially as we bring on more and more systems. One, there's you have to orient the community around this. You have to orient not only the end users, but your practitioners, your operators. You've got to orient around this. Talk a little bit, Mike, and kind of draw us to a close on what it means to start delivering that piece of community engagement.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Again, when I go back to Barcelona, the three themes that came out of that conference were, the technology, the tools, the environment, energy, getting to net zero and things, but people, like human-centered cities, and how do you deliver equity, quality of living, and safety, and all of these things to make lives better for citizens, right? So the Philly Streetlight Project is a great example, right? So converting over 130,000 lights, it is the most significant energy and carbon impact program they've had in their portfolio and their investments in the history of the city of Philadelphia. So this was a very important program for them. One of the things that they wanted to work with us, and of course, we help them, integrate with their Ubiquia controls and be able to deploy and maintain and do all those operational things, right? But for them, it was important as they were rolling it out that they engage the public. So the Philly Streetlight Improvement Project had its own portal, and they used the TerraGo platform data and our web interface as part of that to say, when are crews coming to my neighborhood? When am I going to see these crews? When am I going to see safety? I'm worried about my children. I'm worried about, things in my neighborhood. When does it matter to me? That's great that Philly's doing it and you're spending money and you're saving money and we're going to net zero. But what does it mean to me on my street in West Philadelphia? So you could actually go in and say, when is it coming in? And it also allowed them to engage the community. They could ask questions, they could report issues, all those types of things. And we looked at some of the other sides of community engagement. So community engagement isn't just about reporting your streetlights out, right? It's about engaging the community with what you're doing. So this was a great example in Philly where they said, let's do a great job of engaging the community on how we're not doing this for the sake of a governance outcome. We're doing this for the sake of a city outcome that will improve the lives of our citizens. And we're doing it and we're going to do it in a way so they can connect to their neighborhood, understand when we're coming, why we're coming, and they'll see the difference, before we're there and after we're gone, and this technology. And there have been great impacts from this, by the way. There was a study that came out how much this has reduced, violence and gun violence in Philadelphia with the deployment of this program, right? So this was an example, just one example of it's not just about reporting problems, but it's also how do you bring your citizens along with you in the future to say we're doing these things for the quality of life in our city. So we were proud to work with the city of Philadelphia and our partner Amoresco and our smart lighting partner Ubiquia to be able to deliver this kind of pane of glass out to the community to show them why this is important to them.
Yeah. Mike, I know as we start to bring this to a close, right? I think what's essential to take away is that these challenges, I know they're not all of them and they're not all encompassing, but these seven certainly are very real and they're very complex. cities and organizations are working through the resolution of these challenges. And I think it's essential to realize that there's no place called done. You don't ever solve all these problems. There's just a new iteration of these problems, certainly as it grows, as demand grows, and so forth. We've talked a lot today about smart lighting, and I know that TerraGo has had a deep run helping organizations with their smart lighting, whether it's a municipality, whether it's a utility, they have done that. I think it's also important to understand or to note that Pergo is able to now translate that deep expertise into other domains, whether it's IoT, whether it's smart cities, whether it's all these other components of field deployed assets that are out there. You're able to translate that success into these different domains, and it's essential to for those city leaders or those utility leaders who are kind of knocking their head against these challenges to reach out and grab find out more about what TerraGo is doing and kind of how it might be applicable to what you're doing. Again, Mike, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I think there's so much more we could unpack. I think we have enough time. If any of the questions have come through, I think we have enough time for maybe one or two questions coming out of the Q&A.
Yeah,
Madison, did we get any questions?
got a couple in here for you guys.
Love it.
So someone asked, how difficult is it to integrate TerraGo with our existing systems like GIS, work management, and asset management?
So to give an answer on that quickly is we don't just deliver integration software. And a lot of times you get this question from IT. We deliver comprehensive SaaS with that last S being service. So we have over 100 different commercial connectors today, which are already proven deployed. So we connect to IBM Maximo. We connect to a smart lighting platform. We connect to Salesforce.com. We connect to a smart sensor system. We connect to, for example, EV charging stations and solar lights and camera platforms and things like that. So those different asset classes and smart city sensors that the Mike was mentioning. So we do that all under something we call iPaaS. It's integration platform as a service. So we don't add a burden. One of the problems with deploying new technology in a city is great new technology, and I got to go to IT, and IT says, "Well, I don't have budget, I don't have resources. They gave me an API. How do I integrate? What do I integrate? How do I do that?" That's a huge gap. That gap usually
Yeah.
creates a lot
Yeah.
of problems. We fill that gap with one simple answer. We'll do it. TerraGo, we create these connectors again as part of our no code thing, right? So we configure them for you. We maintain them for you. When you upgrade your IBM Maximo and it needs to be updated and there's a different API call and a different field structure, we do all that. All the mundane stuff that makes the complexity of two-way streaming pipelines difficult, we've conquered. So the short answer with how we do it is it's easy for you because we do it all. We watch it, we troubleshoot it, we maintain it. It's all part of of our service.
Wow. I can tell you as a former CIO, that's music to my ears. I love hearing that.
All right.
Madison, did we have another question?
Yep, we had someone ask, are the challenges very similar inside and outside of the United States?
Ah,
That's good. That's
Mike
good.
probably has a great, expertise on that. I just quickly say that they're different, right? They're different because, for example, in Europe, they typically own the street lights, and in the U.S., sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So what you own and what you leverage and where you use a contractor and where a utility covers it, it's all about like what people own and their assets and their challenges unique to their incentives. But Mike, maybe you have some thoughts on that about
Yeah.
how different it is outside of the U.S.
I'll say that the challenges themselves, as an overarching term, the challenges are the same. How they are approached is different. It's unique. And in my own experience, I think how and what the outcomes are, kind of what the goals are, trying to tackle those challenges. I think that's where the differentiation comes. It is really important, and this goes back to something that we talked on earlier, right? This notion of interoperability is one of the crucial elements that helps tackle those challenges, whether you're inside or outside the US. At the end of the day, you're still delivering a solution. That solution still needs to go across disparate systems. those disparate systems still need to kind of render benefit back to stakeholders, whether it's community, whether it's operators, et cetera. You still need to accomplish that. Just how that approach is done is where the variance comes between inside or outside the US.
Great.
All right. We had a question. What type of data needs do you foresee in the near future using video high res for ITS, gun detections, etc.?
It said what type of data
What
challenges
type
do we
of
see or
data needs do you
data
foresee
needs?
in the near
Oh
future?
gosh. To be honest, the challenge with data is scalability, right? So the challenges we see are scalability, and it's something that we have built our architecture on from the ground up to be able to do that. So the fact that there's very rich video data and things like that. Now we don't always store all the video data, but we store photos and videos along with the records and stream them, and then we maintain an audit trail of everything that happens. So our data is growing, and the volume of it is one thing, right? And then the use of it is the other. So the volume and the scalability you solve architecturally through design, through good software, through the guys in our office that are data scientists, and all taking advantage of the evolution there. The other important thing about data, though, is what do you do with the data? And that's where we have built something that we call our rules engine. So everything in our world is about an event. So a video event, a photo event, an update on a street light. These are all different events. Then we built a rules engine so you can take that taxonomy. Oops, sorry. We've got a taxonomy there where we can say, let's translate that into Let's translate that into the fabric of the city. What do they care about, right? So, and how are they using video? How are they using photos? How are they using this type of data? And that obviously becomes a very important governance issue as well. So, from a scalability point of view, it's architecture, and the needs we see on the other side. It's the need to have that kind of a business rules framework for what do you do with all this data. They don't lack data; they lack that ability to get from the noise to the signal to the action.
I think the easy answer is going to be um, there are going to be new formats of data, the way the data is delivered and kind of the format type. I think as Terra continues to evolve, they're going to be accepting of all those data formats. I think the other part too is keep in mind that data, by and large, data has two purposes. One, faster pattern recognition. Two, smarter resource allocation. It's awareness plus action. Now that you know this thing, what's the appropriate and corresponding action that you're going to have to it? As your organization starts to look at new technologies, you have to put an emphasis on what you're trying to do, not how you're getting it done. Because if you focus on what you're trying to do, you allow partners like a TerraGo to come in and be plastic and kind of flexible in how they're getting it done for you, and you're not um, kind of hemming them into a particular way of getting it done. So I know that that's kind of an overarching, answer, but just keep focused on what you're trying to accomplish, not how you're getting it done. And with that, we're going to be at time. I want to be mindful of everyone's time that they've got. Thank you for giving us an hour out of your day. It's difficult to listen to two talking heads, but uh, hopefully the content that we talked about either answered some questions or generated more questions. If it generated more questions, please reach out to the folks at TerraGo and ask them to provide some additional context for you to address some of the challenges that you're facing today. Again, thank you. We wish you all happy holidays.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everybody.
Everybody.